Okay, now once we've analyzed all financial statements, seen how the financial statements are presented, how the income statement looks like, how the statement of financial position or the statement of changes in equity looks like, it's now that we need to understand these numbers as well. All right, so numbers alone cannot explain the entire picture over here, which is why we will use ratio analysis. The purpose of ratio analysis is that we need to develop a relationship between numbers. All right, so for example, if your sales has increased compared to last year, we need to understand why has it increased. It can also be the fact that sales has increased but your profit has also decreased because, let's say, the cost of goods went up, the raw material became expensive. Anything can happen. Maybe the firm lost control over its overheads. All right, so they took a loan. Anything that has changed. So we need to develop a relationship between numbers so that we can better understand the context of the firm's financial performance for that year. Okay, now at AS level, we will look at ratios from two contexts. One is profitability and efficiency, the other is liquidity. Okay, under profitability and efficiency, as the name implies, our basic job is to see how profitable the firm is. Number one, how efficient is it using its resource? Particularly when we talk about this, we are referring to the assets being used to generate sales. The other area that we will investigate is your liquidity. Now, this word comes across a lot, but we need to understand why is liquidity being used. So essentially what the word liquidity means is, does the firm have sufficient resources or sufficient current assets to pay off short term obligations? So, how will the firm pay off its current liabilities? That's the basic question. So, if you guys have to pay off your suppliers, how will you pay that off? Now, obviously, we cannot pay that money from our non current assets. So, like, the best way to understand is that if you have to pay your supplier, will you sell off your non-current assets, let's say plant and machinery, just to pay off suppliers, or will you use money from your bank account, money coming from receivable, or maybe sell off inventory just to pay off your suppliers, right? So the context over here to better understand numbers is to look at profitability and efficiency, and the other area is liquidity, the ability of the firm to pay off its short-term obligations. All right, so in this video, what I will do is I will go through the profitability and efficiency ratios first, and in the next video, I shall go through the liquidity ratios. So I think now let's start off with profitability and efficiency. Okay, so the first profitability ratio and the most important one, I think, would be return on capital employed. So you guys will come across this ratio quite often across the course. Return on capital employed can be calculated as profit before interest and tax, which is your operating profit. That's the profit that the firm has earned after paying off cost of goods sold, operating expense, divided by capital employed. Okay, now what is capital employed? Now let's take a look at capital employed like this. So when a firm has to raise money or it starts, it has two options to raise its money from. One source is that the owners can give the money, which can be, if it's a sole trader, that's a single owner. If it's a company, it's the shareholder. The other option is the company can borrow money, all right, which is called non-current liabilities such as loans, etc. So when I define capital employed is the total money that the firm has raised to finance the firm. So that's your equity, share capital and reserve. That's your equity, money given by the owners or the money that belongs to the owners, plus non-current liabilities, which is loans, debentures, etc. That's your capital employed, right? You can also calculate capital employed like this, that you can add up all your non-current assets and current assets, subtract them from your current liability. That's the other side of the equation. All right, so operating profit divided by capital employed. So we define return on capital employed as the primary profitability ratio, which is essentially measuring the return that is being earned by the financiers of the company. What I mean by financiers is people who are giving money to this company. That's the equity holders or the owners, and the debt holders, people who are giving us a loan or debenture. What's their return? So I can define this to be a return that is earned by the entire business. right? So investors will obviously compare the return on capital employed to other companies. They will compare this to their opportunity cost. What do I mean by that? So for example, if this business gives you a return of 10%, let's say on every dollar invested, what that means is that I will compare this to other investment opportunities that are other investment opportunities giving me a return greater than 10% or less than 10%. So return on capital employed is essentially telling you the return that this business will earn if you put in $1 into the business, right? And for a business to sustain in the long run, we should remember one thing. The It should earn a return on capital employed greater than its opportunity cost of capital. Why is that? Because investors will then never want to sell out their shares or, let's say, take their money back. They would want their money to be invested if it's earning a return greater than the opportunity cost. So, for example, if return on capital employed is 21%, you get an answer of 21%. That means that if you invest $100 into this business, whether you invest that as an equity holder or as a debt holder, you will get a $21 return from this business. Okay, we can also calculate the return just for the equity holders or the shareholders. So for that, we'll use your return on equity. All right, so this ratio is for the owners. This is profit after tax. So that's the profit that the firm has paid after interest to the debt holders. The firm has paid tax to the government. This profit figure goes to the shareholders. Remember, this figure also goes to the statement of changes in equity. So the final profit for the year divided by the equity amount. Equity amount is defined as ordinary share capital plus reserves. You guys should refer to company over here multiplied by 100. So if I get an answer of 23%, that means if you invest $1 as a shareholder, remember in return on capital employed, I was looking at it from the entire business perspective. Over here we're looking at this from the perspective of a shareholder. All right, so we need to differentiate between return on capital employed and return on equity. Okay, now let's move on. Okay, the next ratio to consider is your operating profit margin. So, operating profit margin is your operating profit, which is again profit before interest and tax divided by sales. So, what this ratio will tell you is that as a percentage of your sales, what amount does the firm earn as its operating profit or operating income?
Quick pause. If you're finding value in this explanation, there's so much more to discover. At Alt Academy, we break down every A-level concept with the same level of clarity. Now, let's continue.
So, what this ratio explains is that what percent of your revenue or sales is left behind after the firm has paid cost of goods sold, has paid off its operating expenses, what amount is left behind. So, higher the operating profit margin, the higher the firm is able to retain it, which can then go to the shareholders, can be used to pay off interest cost. All right, so the finances of the company will get only an amount once they've earned their operating profit and the firm has cleared off all its expenses. Now, I've discussed this before that gross profit margin was defined as gross profit upon sales. This ratio shows that what percent of sales is left behind as gross profit. So, for example, if your gross profit margin is 42%, so what you can say is that if you earned $1 of sales, 0.42 is left behind, and 58%, which is 0.58 to a dollar, was used to pay off your trading cost or just to buy goods. All right, so it's interesting over here if we can compare gross profit margin and operating profit margin. So, what I can say is, so let's say there's a firm that has a gross profit margin of 30% and its operating profit margin is 10%. Now, what do you guys understand by this? Now, I can describe it like this. So, let's say if the firm earns $100 as sales, all right, so the gross profit margin is 30%, which means that if a firm makes $100 of sales, 30% means that $30 is left behind as your gross profit. So that's your gross profit now. All right. So how much did you spend on trading cost? I mean the cost of buying your goods. That's $70 was spent over here. Okay, now after your gross profit, what do you have to pay next? Operating expenses, expenses like rent, electricity, salaries. So your operating profit margin is 10%, which means that from this $100, only 10%, which is $10 is left behind. What this allows us is to calculate that $20 was spent on operating expenses. So I know this money went on your trading goods or the cost of buying goods, and this money went on operating expenses. So many times we can see firms where, let's say there's a firm, it has a higher gross profit margin but a lower operating profit margin, which means that they will have little control of these overheads. So ideally we would want this amount to be low or operating profit margin to be high, because overheads is an area which usually firms can control, but cost of goods is usually something they cannot control if, let's say, the raw material or the good is usually expensive. Okay, factors that can affect your gross profit margin. If you change the price or the selling price of the good, you can say that if an increase in selling price, your gross profit margin should increase as well, because you will be able to retain more for gross profit now. If, let's say, your cost of sales has gone up due to any stock loss or anything, in that case, your gross profit margin should decrease. All right, so we should remember the factors that can affect your gross profit margin. We also looked at gross profit markup. Gross profit markup was a relationship of gross profit over cost of sales. This was used to arrive at the selling price as well, because once you have the cost, remember we did this in topics like absorption costing, incomplete records. So once you have the cost of sales, you can use that to calculate your gross profit and then arrive at the selling price. The basic idea to remember is that selling price can be defined as cost plus any profit added onto it. We can also briefly go through the net profit margin as well, or the net profit percentage. That's basically the profit after interest and tax divided by sales, or the money that will flow directly to the shareholders only. All right. So over here, we're just looking at it from the point of your shareholders, the profit as a percentage of sales they should get. And now we've also done this, so we should also be in a position to calculate operating expense percentage. That's operating expense upon sales. So that shows the percentage of your sales, which is your operating expense. But remember, I also explained an easier way to arrive at this number. The difference between your gross profit margin, right, and the difference between your operating profit margin is also called your operating expense to sales, because the difference between gross profit and operating profit is obviously your operating expenses. All right. Okay, now what about efficiency? So we have a ratio for efficiency as well. Let's take a look at that. So the non-current asset turnover, that is sales divided by non-current assets. Now this ratio measures the efficiency of a business. Now how does it measure efficiency? So when a firm buys non-current assets, the basic objective is that these non-current assets will be used to generate sales. All right, so the money that we invest in non-current assets, how much times of do they generate? All right, so the higher the sales they can generate, the more efficient we can say our resources are being used, because once you earn sales, then only you'll be able to make a profit. So if I give some numbers over here, so let's say there's a firm, you've invested $100,000 in the non-current assets and it's able to generate sales of $300,000. What does that mean? It means that your non-current asset turnover should be 3 times. So on every dollar invested in non-current assets, you should be able to generate 3 times its sales. So that shows your resources are efficient. If this number is low, it means that the amount of money you're investing does not generate sales to that optimum or with that efficiency. So a firm would ideally want this number to be high, since the resources can generate a higher multiple of sales. All right, so that's it for profitability and efficiency ratios. Do go through them once. I will first cover liquidity ratios, and then we should start off with some questions where we will apply these ratios.
Our complete A levels accounting course is waiting for you on our website. In addition to accounting, you can also find business, economics, maths, and 4 other full A level offerings. So, thousands of students who've already unlocked their potential. Visit all to get me right now.